Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. In our top story, as we reported, a major fire in Christiansted early Monday destroyed HH Tire and Battery, an auto shop that has been in business since 1964. Smoke, fire, and fumes was the scene. The Virgin Islands Fire Service toiled through the heat and rain in the early morning to extinguish that blaze that engulfed the long-standing business. Fire Services Director Clifford Joseph said the fire started in the location of the battery area. Here's more.
Fire Service received a call about 4:30, and units were on scene at the Captain Gilbert, Charles Gilbert, got on scene about 4:37, found fire and real quickly went ahead and called for other units to respond. A fire of this size, we always normally roll just about everything that we have. So we actually had about 9 units out there yesterday, taking on the fire at H&H, battling the fire throughout the day. So as of 7 p.m. last night, I got a call from the Deputy Chief Williams, thumbs up to Chief Williams, on the job, that everything is extinguished, and at this time the fire is under investigation. And thank you for all the my personnel that went out there and give it the 100%.
Again, as of 7 p.m. last night, the fire was extinguished. Investigation continues. If you have any information, call VI Fire Services. Meanwhile, nearby schools were back in session today after smoke accumulation from that fire. The Department of Education representatives said it had adversely affected the air quality of a number of schools westward of the business on Monday. Ricardo Richards, Alfredo Andrews, John H. Woodson, Elena Christian, St. Croix Central, St. Croix Educational Complex, and Lou Muckle, they were called off but back in session today, Tuesday. Well, the smoke released from this fire is a mixture of particles from tires and batteries that contain certain chemicals which can be harmful to your health. The Department of Health reps, they're saying that people who reside in the affected area and businesses from Castle Coakley to Mars Hill, about 10 miles, should take precautionary measures to reduce inhalation exposure. Inhaling carbon monoxide may result in headaches, shortness of breath, irritation to the eyes, nausea, vomiting, reduced alertness, and that's just to name a few. Those with cardiovascular, example, abnormal heartbeats or respiratory conditions like asthma, pregnant women, infants, young children, and the elderly may be more vulnerable to the health effects of smoke exposure. Here are some precautionary measures. Close windows and doors of residents to minimize the air particles coming into the home. Closely monitor family members, particularly those affected by asthma, sickle cell, heart disease, and immune deficiencies. Seek medical attention if any problems are noted. Close windows of vehicles when passing in the vicinity. Asthmatics are at risk for having a lung reaction to the particles. The cutter, the Coast Guard cutter, Joseph Tezanos, is the 6th fast response cutter to be home ported in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the 19th to be commissioned in the Coast Guard fleet. The 154-foot cutter is designed to conduct maritime drug interdiction, alien migrant interdiction, search and rescue. Upon earning his commission as an ensign in 1945, Tezanos became one of the first known Hispanic American officers in the Coast Guard and known as a hero. Tezanos died in 1985. On August 17th, the passenger ferry vessel Caribbean Fantasy, you may remember, experienced an engine fire. The cutter, Joseph Tezanos' crew personally evacuated more than 100 of the 511 passengers. Well, after a trip to Cuba, the Roseway returned to the VI. The 137-foot, 91-year-old ship is berthed at Yacht Haven Grand. You may have seen it, but our students are enjoying the benefits. Groups of students from the Adelita Cancrine Junior High, they are going out on sailing trips. It's all part of a classroom at sea experience. It's all about the study of marine science, and they are The only public school in the territory to offer a water safety course that is comprised of swimming, snorkeling, stand-up paddling, and that's Adelita Cancrine. The class will resume in January. However, the sailing classes will be daily for the next 2 weeks, ending on December 12th.
They had a nice ecology lesson to riding out on the bowsprit out there, to learning about what it is to be a sailor, as well as learning about simple machines, because we use simple machines every day by raising these sails up and down, by all sorts of things, block and tackle on board the ship. So they learned about that today. I believe it's one class. There's 5 sessions. There'll be a group 1. Upwards of up to 5, group 5, so each group will get 2 days on board, 2 full days with us. Built in 1925, Grand Banks fishing schooner. So she fished for swordfish from 1925 till 1941, at which point she became a Boston Harbor. Obviously, in 1941 we were engaged in war, so she was pressed into service.
Job well done right there for all the students. Well, when the news broke that Fidel Castro was dead at 90 years old after sending more than 1 million of his own people into exile, it was something personal for many Cubans, including some residing here on St. Thomas. Here's one man's story. Gomez is the executive chef and co-owner of the New Lime restaurant. While he was busy celebrating the new business venture, the news came in.
For me, it's very emotional. Just to see 50 years of dictatorship and tyranny come down. When growing up as a Cuban American in Miami, I would hear just horror stories of what went on in Cuba just for political beliefs. When you live in a place of total lack of freedom, from just thoughts, beliefs, what you wanted to be as a human being. If you wanted to be a chef, if you wanted to be, an artist, you couldn't do that. Government owned you.
Fidel Castro's reign was longer than any other Latin American ruler this century. Most Cubans struggle to put enough food on the table, dwell in crumbling buildings, and thousands plunge regularly into the seas, hoping to join the 1.3 million Cubans already living in the United States.
My father, he came over in 1959, right as the revolution was about to hit. And my father, he was 21 years old and going to the university. And at this point, my father joined the organization to actually kill Batista and Castro. He fortunately defected right before the revolution and was in Miami. And I remember him telling me a story when I was a kid, and my grandmother as well, that the army of Cuba was actually knocking at my grandma's door with machine guns to look for my dad. And lucky enough, my dad was already in Miami. And then on the other side, my grandfather from my mom's side, he was in jail for 3 years just because he was the mayor of his town. And he luckily escaped, 3 years later and defected to Miami. But just because of a political belief to be incarcerated, it's just against all humanity, in my opinion. A little bit of capitalism will be great for Cuba. A little bit of privatism of business. You're starting to see that slowly. I never want to wish anybody, death, but just it's very exciting to see the future of Cuba and what's going to come out of the new era of Cuba.
Meanwhile, people from around the world descended upon Cuba to pay respects to Fidel Castro. The island's president died last week. He was 90 years old. Now the nation of Cuba is saying farewell during a week of mourning. Scott McLean is in Cuba with more.
On the streets of Havana, Cubans are mourning their former leader, Fidel Castro, standing in line for hours in Revolution Plaza to leave flowers and to pay tribute to the man who led the island nation for nearly 50 years.
He dedicated his entire life to form a historical conscience in the Cuban people. And I believe that a people without a historical conscience is a people without a soul.
Castro is also being remembered outside of Cuba. In Caracas, Venezuela, people stood in line to sign a book of condolences. In Miami, it seems no one is sending condolences. Instead, many Cuban Americans are celebrating the death of a man they call a tyrant. Fidel Castro died at the age of 90 after a lifetime spent thumbing his nose at Western powers. More recently, relations between the U.S. and Cuba had thawed. Evidence of that seen Monday with the first commercial flight from Miami to Havana in decades.
I am a tourist, and I would like to go to Cuba, to Havana, to enjoy the music and the bars and the jazz club.
Back in the plaza, Carlos Cremata is taking his students to pay respect to a man whose legacy he says will continue to shape their futures.
Yo estoy convencido, yo crecí.
I'm convinced. I grew up in this Cuba, Fidel's Cuba. These are his children and grandchildren. Yes, I'm absolutely convinced.
In Havana, Cuba, I'm Scott McLean.
In other news, President-elect Donald Trump has chosen Elaine Chao for his transportation secretary. An official announcement was expected early this afternoon. Chao served as Secretary of Labor under President George W. Bush from 2001 through 2009. Also served as the Deputy Secretary of Transportation under President George Bush from 1989 to 1991. She was the first Asian American woman to serve in a cabinet position. She is married to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Also in other news, 6 survivors have been found under the wreckage of a plane that crashed in Colombia, carrying members of a Brazilian soccer team. At least 75 people who were aboard have been confirmed dead after the jet went down outside the city of Medellin, Colombia, amidst inclement weather. The charter jet had declared an emergency before it went down. Local officials were stunned by the crash. The players aboard were from Chapecoense, a team from the top flight of Brazilian soccer. They were traveling to face a Colombian team for a continental tournament. Compounding the tragedy, the team is lesser known in soccer, Brazil, but had just started to find success and a greater following. Officials are vowing to do everything they can for the crash survivors. Tributes from around the world have now begun pouring in. Keeping our eye on the economy, let's take a look at the stock market watch at the New York Stock Exchange. According to the numbers, we can see everything up. The Dow 23, NASDAQ 11, S&P 500 up at 2. Well, coming up on News 2, it's the time of the season to hit the red bells. The Salvation Army campaign kicks off. Details coming up. Nice view of the Roseway right there at Yacht Haven Grand. Lieutenant Governor Osbert Potter departed the territory on November 28th, yesterday, to attend the National Lieutenant Governors Association business meeting in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is the primary business meeting of the year for the NLGA. Agenda items include planning the annual meeting agenda and a review of the semi-annual finance report. The NLGA membership consists of lieutenant governors from the states and the U.S. territories. While in Arizona, Lieutenant Governor Potter, along with Rick Mulgrave, director of the Virgin Islands Bureau of Corrections, will visit the Saguaro Correctional Facility in Arizona, where there are 63 VI inmates housed. Senate President Neville James is serving as acting lieutenant governor. He will return to the territory on December 2nd. Labor Commissioner Catherine Hendry, Esquire, reminds all VI employers and the public that the final rule on overtime pay regulations will go into effect on December 1st, 2016. Overtime protections were first put into place by the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. Now, a free informational forum is coming up. Those are the dates. The event will include an introduction and overview presented by Mr. David Marin of the United States Department of Labor. The forum's right there on Monday, November 28, St. Thomas St. John District, Department of Education Curriculum Center from 10 a.m. to 12. Then Tuesday, November 29th, St. Croix District at the D.C. Canagata Ballpark Center from 10 to 12. Well, earlier the team at Schneider Regional Medical Center informed the public of an air conditioning system malfunction that led to the rescheduling of certain non-emergent procedures and limited offerings in the Island Breeze Cafe. Well, new motors for the circulating pumps were ordered from Puerto Rico. Those parts arrived and have been installed. And as of 8 p.m. last night, the air conditioning had been restored and the building is cooling. Certain non-emergent services in the hospital were suspended yesterday. However, they are once again available. If you need to reschedule an appointment, you can call 340-776-8311. The air conditioning system at CKCI was not affected by this situation. The Institute's linear accelerator has also been repaired and is fully functional. If you are 60 years and older and you've had the chicken pox in the past, you are at risk of contracting shingles. The Department of Health St. Thomas Immunization Clinic on Friday, December 2nd or Friday, December 9th, they're providing vaccines to prevent you from getting the shingles. Call 340-774-7477 to make your appointment and or to get more information. Shingles is an extremely painful skin rash and possibly skin blisters that usually appears on one side of the face or body and lasts from about 2 to 4 weeks. Other symptoms can include fever, headache, chills, and upset stomach. Although very rare, shingles can also lead to pneumonia, hearing problems, blindness, and brain inflammation or even death. For the 4th year in a row, VINGN, they're participating in the worldwide event, the Hour of Code, and invites the community to access the free activity online during Computer Science Education Week, which is December 5th to 11th. This year, live event based on the Disney character right there, Moana, will be held on St. Croix at the Central Seventh-day Adventist Public Computer Center on Thursday, December 8th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. It's an exciting intro to programming principles using blocks of code in a game-like atmosphere that is instructive to students of all ages. It's free from the 2nd grade through adult. Hour of Code is an international code.org event. Tis the season. The 2016 annual Red Kettle campaign kicks off on Wednesday, November 30th at 11 a.m. at Government House in St. Thomas. Governor Kenneth Mapp will serve as this year's honorary chairman. Public contributions to the Virgin Islands Salvation Army kettles during the holiday season. It enables the local corps to continue their year-round efforts, helping those who would otherwise be forgotten. Currently, the St. Thomas Corps of the Salvation Army provides over 45,000 meals to those most in need in our community. West Indian Company Limited will be hosting its 32nd annual Christmas tree lighting from 12 noon to 10 p.m. on Wednesday, December 7th at Havenside Mall at the West Indian Company dock. This year's event will feature musical entertainment, seasonal treats, cultural traditions, and performances by school choirs and bands. There will be an all-day mini Christmas village. Now, the young at heart and the young can anticipate Santa's 32nd visit to this special event at 6 p.m. when he arrives to light the fabulous 20-foot Christmas tree before the always beloved Santa toy giveaway to all good girls and boys. The Aida Vita will be in port, the ship, until 4 p.m. The Disney Fantasy will be there until 4:15 p.m. and the Royal Princess pushes off at 10 p.m. And lots of treats leading up to Santa's arrival in time for the Christmas tree lighting again. Stores will remain open late with special offers to accommodate early bird holiday shoppers. Be sure to tune in to TV2 for our special presentation of Waiko's Christmas at 6:30 p.m. as well. Happy holidays from Tutu Park Mall. Guess who is coming to Tutu Park Mall to light that 25-foot Christmas tree? Santa. Well, there will be face painting and much more by Happy Times, hosted by Shay Solomon. Music by Reynold, DJ Pete, Charles. Parents are asked to bring out the children so they can give Santa their Christmas list. Starting from this Saturday to December 23rd, there will be holiday concert series and the annual Christmas tree lighting at 6. Extended holiday hours begins December 19th from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. straight until the 23rd. Be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.
Well, we have two weather makers sitting across the central Caribbean right now. That's going to be affecting the Virgin Islands over the next couple of days, keeping things quite dreary, unfortunately. So as we take a look at the satellite, you can see the remnants of a cold front that's really begun to stall out right over the Mona Passage. And then we also have a weak area of low pressure just off to the south of it. Now that area of low pressure is going to be moving in towards the west over the next couple of days. And between that and that stalled front, keeping things right along the line of the Virgin Islands, that's going to be bringing us our weather. So as we take a look at our current radar, you're seeing a couple of those passing showers out of the east, and overall really not too heavy. But as we head into tonight, we'll continue to see a shower or two, and that's only going to begin to pick up into Wednesday, Thursday, as well as Friday as that area of low pressure begins to push west. So for St. John's tomorrow, we're definitely going to be seeing quite a bit of clouds, and that extends into St. Thomas as well. Temperatures right around the mid-80s, and into St. Croix also 86 degrees, continuing to see those spotty showers as well. Now out of the waters, there is a small craft advisory in effect. These waves on the Atlantic side, 5 to 7 feet. This small craft advisory goes through Thursday morning as that area of low pressure begins to shift off to the west. We do have some winds out of the northeast, 15 to 20 knots as well, with gusts slightly higher. Now on the Caribbean side of things, our waves are the same and our winds are the same. Small craft advisory, though, is only going to last through about Wednesday night. So a shorter time for the small craft advisory out on the Caribbean side of the coast. Here's a look at your extended forecast. We will be seeing those spotty showers continue in from Wednesday into Friday. Definitely more frequent than what we're used to, but come the weekend, maybe on Saturday, we'll keep a shower or two around the area, and then by Sunday, we'll head back into those stray showers, maybe just those spotty ones coming out of the east. Well, it's going to be a wet week ahead, so definitely come prepared with those umbrellas and those rain jackets as well. That's what I'll leave you with. Back to you, Sandy.
Okay, some good advice, but according to Mia King's picture there, we have typical VI weather with some sunshine representing Ricardo Richards Elementary School. Mia, thank you for that nicely colored tropical picture there, but be sure to keep your umbrella handy. And if you'd like to submit a picture, send it to the address on the screen. Be sure to include all the information we need and then tune in to see it right here on News 2. That is all for this edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Have a wonderful evening.